Do we have sound? Hopefully. How are you?
Am I in?
You're in.
Okay, I kept having sound stuff. Is it just you and me, Shauna?
It's just you and me.
All right, well, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. I don't know.
Have you been busy with your Zoom meetings?
Yeah, we're actually doing WebEx, but we run them twice a day.
Oh, and how long are they?
The ones we do in the mission are about half an hour,
Uh-huh.
about 45 minutes with questions. So it's been good.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. I've been, just got an email from a parent. I can hear them ding. That's how I'm working, but I'll wait 15 minutes. They don't know I'm sitting there at the ready. Oh, I have a family history knot I've been trying to unravel for a long time. Gosh, I have been looking for my Uncle Skilly. I may have told you, Skilly Skillman. And what's his real name, you know? And so I knew he lived in Joshua Tree, and I joined newspapers.com. And I can't find an obit, but I can find lots of those little snippets like Lucia and Skilly went to dinner with so-and-sos. They said they had a good time. All this, you know, kind of nonsense that used to be in those papers. So I've established that they were there. And I've found that his name is Leonard in some of those little snippets, because I didn't even know his first name. And there is a Leonard Skillman that died.
Hello.
Hi.
Let's continue this on in a few minutes because I promised everyone I would only keep them for 15.
I'm ready.
And we're actually recording this, so we have to watch our time. How are the Eplings?
Good. Good.
Good. Would one of you be willing to give us an opening prayer?
Sure. My mom's actually coming down in a sec. I'll be right there. Okay.
Go ahead. We'll start with prayer.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that we are here, and thank you for family history and for giving us such an amazing opportunity. And please bless that we can feel the Spirit while we learn. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. It's really important. I didn't realize when I first started family history how important it is to start with prayer. We are dealing with our ancestors who have been waiting, in some cases, hundreds and hundreds of years for us to rediscover them and hook them and get them ready for temple ordinances. And the best conduit they have to inspire us and to guide us is through prayer. So I try, and I hope you do too, that every time we engage in family history, welcome Pitts, that we start with prayer. So I promised I would keep these to 15 minutes, so we're going to get started. First thing we're going to do, I'm going to give you just a really brief little PowerPoint thing, if I can get it. I'm not sure what's going on here. Let's start again. That's not working. You know, you think you've got technology figured out, and you don't. So Let's see. We'll try one other direction. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So our goal here is to give you a 15-minute assignment in family history. And so today we're going to talk about FamilySearch. It is a tree that grows. It is both living and dead. Remember our quote that we love from President Oaks? Our effort is not to compel everyone to do everything, but to encourage everyone to do something. So we want you to carve out 15 minutes in the next week to do something. Our dead tree that grows. The FamilySearch has created the only dead tree that does grow. When a person dies, another leaf is added to the tree. Living people are the roots that feed FamilySearch's trees, and the roots are not seen by the public. So imagine that you, all of us here, are living. We are hidden in the trunk or the roots. We are the lifeblood of this tree. We are what makes it bigger and better. The leaves are all of our deceased ancestors. Our job is to make sure they stay connected. So my question is, why would someone enter a living relative as deceased or change them from living to deceased? Any ideas? You have to unmute if you're going to feedback.
Right? Because they've actually died?
Because they've actually died, so that's why they would change them from living to deceased. Why would you change a deceased? Let's see. Why would someone enter a living person as deceased if they're still living? Any ideas? Nobody knows. Okay, we're going to discover. Living people are like a bridge to your deceased relatives. So our FamilySearch tree has two parts. Remember, the trunk and the roots are you. You're the living part. And the leaves are the deceased people. So let's look at the policy for adding names of living people to a family tree. First of all, FamilySearch is different than other places like Ancestry and MyHeritage and your private pedigree charts. Those are just that. They are yours. FamilySearch is a public tree. So anybody, anywhere can work on it. Now that comes with a blessing and a curse. You will enter stuff, but someone else can go in and change your stuff. Now maybe they will change it for the better, we hope so, and maybe they will make a mistake, but it is a public tree. Living people do not show on your tree unless you entered them yourself. And every time you add a living person to your tree, that person will be given another PID number. When that happens, a duplicate record is created when the person dies. So does anyone not know what a PID number is? A personal ID number. Okay, if we look up in help and find out FamilySearch's information as to who can see living people in a family tree, this is the article that we find. I'm going to blow it up so that we can read it a little better. Family tree protects the privacy of living people by restricting who can see their records. You can see the record of a living person only if you created that record. The system hides records that you create of living people from everyone else, including the people themselves and other family members. So, if I enter my husband into family tree, and he goes on and looks for himself and he hasn't entered himself, he won't be able to find himself. because he is living and he is only on my tree. Living people have a private person banner at the top of their person page. In places where a death date would appear for a deceased person, the word living appears instead. If a person is not marked manually living, the system uses rules to determine whether a person could still be living. Although family tree records for living people are private, the memories attached to them are potentially viewable by anyone, whether or not they are registered users. Now, how do you find a person that's living in Family Tree? The Find feature does not bring up a living person in a search by name or ID. The only exception is when you use an ID number to search for a living person in a record that you have created. If you do not know the ID number for the living person you added to Family Tree, there are a couple options for you to find him or her. If you know where to find the person in the tree, navigate to that person. Search for a close deceased relative in the tree and then navigate to the person that you want to find. Okay, a lot of information. Article again is found in Help. You simply type in, how do I see my living relatives? And it will tell you. A couple of questions for you. You can see the record of a living person only if, fill in the blank.
Oh, you can see
The record of a living person only if you added the record. Okay. The system hides records you create of living people from whom?
Everybody else.
Everyone, including you,
Family.
unless they're linked directly to you. So you can enter your sister, but if you don't link her to you and your family, she's hiding. You can't find her again unless you remember her PID number. Okay? So when you enter a living person, make sure you link them to someone so you can find them again. And our third question, ordinances for the living are not visible. Okay, so if you enter you and you have been baptized and you look under temple ordinances, you will not see the date of your baptism because you're living. Questions? Okay. So this is me. Move my pictures out of the way here. This is me. Up here you'll notice it says I am living. This is my 7-digit PID number. If I clicked on ordinances over here, notice what it says. Not available. Why? Because I'm alive. Once I am no longer alive, all of those dates become available. Can you find the living? This is one of my really good friends. Rosie's husband, Owen, passed away a few years ago. If she types into FamilySearch, this is the box that she will see. She is down here. Her husband is up here. This is what Rosie sees. Now, if I take Owen's PID and I enter it, this is what I see. Notice he has no spouse. Why?
Because she's still alive.
Because she's still alive. So in order for me to see this kind of information, I would have to add it here. But when I added it, the PID would be different. So I would basically make a duplicate. If I were to add her as a living person and she had added herself, there would be 2 of her. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, let's say we'll use me as an example, that suddenly I'm no longer with us. How do I change someone from living to deceased? You'll notice on my page, in my details, it says that I am living. If I click on that edit button next to the death, this screen appears. Notice I'm marked as living. If I change it to deceased, and then I enter the date and place of the death, and I add my reason statement, this box will turn blue and I will click Save, and then I would be changed. The other thing, there are some rules to determine whether a person can still be living. Because remember, there's a lot of us working on this tree, and a lot of people enter living people and then forget about them or forget to change them to deceased. And so the computer, we learned last week from reverse indexing that computers are getting smarter, and the computer program is built to look for certain things. So if you have a person in the living area of family tree that was born 110 years ago, they're going to automatically move them to the deceased area. If they were married 95 years ago or longer, they're going to move them. Or if they had a child born 95 years ago or longer, they're going to move them. Okay, so there's some safeguards. The way it is supposed to work is when someone in the ward passes away, the ward clerk goes in, changes them to deceased, and that makes them active. But any of these entries in the living space that haven't been changed will automatically be changed by the computer when these criteria are met. All right, let's go to a different screen. We're going to go live, I hope. Let's see, where can I? Okay. Couple of things. If anyone listening does not have an account, that is one of our goals this week, is to make sure that everyone in every family ages 8 or older has their own account. If they are between the ages of 8 and 11, they will need parent help and permission. To do that, you simply hit the Create Account button and start filling in this information. Brother Woodward has the membership record numbers of the younger ones if we need them. You can simply contact him. I have an account, so I'm going to sign in. All right. If you need help, this button up here, go to the Help Center, and you would simply type in living people, and all sorts of articles come up about living people. You can use that for any help that you need, but that's a good place to go. We're going to take just a minute. We're going to find person. All right, this is me. Remember, they said there was a banner that came across if someone was living. So this nice yellow banner says living person, reminds us that we're living. I come down here, sure enough, under death, I am living. If I want to change that, I click on edit. You'll notice the save button is grayed out right now. If I change myself to deceased, then I would enter a date, a place, and a reason I know it's true, and I would click save. It's as simple as that. I am living, so I'm going to leave myself as living. The other place we want to look is our tree view. That is up here. This is our pedigree. We'll go over some of the nuances of this in future classes, but for this week's goal, we want everyone to enter themselves, and we want you to get from yourself back to a deceased ancestor. For most of us, it won't be very far. For the younger ones, it might be as many as entering 15 people. So you'll notice I am here in the middle. My mom and dad are also living, so I had to enter them. But when I got back to my grandpa and my grandma's, they were deceased. All I had to do was hook myself to them, and then everything else filled in for me. I didn't have to retype it all. Now I have also, sorry, a little big. I have also hooked myself to my husband. So we have a marriage date, and his parents are both deceased. So he only had to go enter himself and hook him to them, and then he populated. We also went ahead and added our children and our grandchildren, because we want to keep memories and pictures of them and hook to them so that years down the road, those memories are not lost. Do you have any questions about how to hook and connect people? All right, let's go back one more time. So this week's challenge, everyone 8 years and older is to get their own account, and you need to enter your name, your birth date, and where you were born for yourself and for every living direct ancestor. Like I say, most people you will enter is 15 until your tree links to a deceased ancestor. At that point, the tree will populate. So I'm going to, for the handout this week, give you guys a PDF of this little booklet. If you go to the center of it, you will find this chart. So we're going to add yourself, your mom and dad, and each set of your grandparents. Remember, these are living relatives. For me, these were my deceased relatives. So I don't want you to worry about accurately entering dates and places a certain way. Just collect the information and enter it any way you want to get back to a deceased relative. Ron Tanner, who's one of the really important people at FamilySearch, wrote this, and I thought it was worth sharing. There's love within our family, and happiness abounds. Its roots are deeply planted in rich and fertile ground. We enjoy the rays of sunlight and endure the winds and rain, and when a leaf falls from our tree, together we share the pain. God gave us earthly families and never did intend that bonds of love built on earth upon our death would end. For when our life is over and from earth our souls will flee, one by one, leaf by leaf, he'll rejoin our family tree. Okay, if you guys have any questions or you need help getting this little 15-minute assignment done, feel free to call one of our consultants and they will help walk you through it. Let's see, chat. I'm going to go and find the file and I will put it in the chat for you. Okay, it should be there in the chat. You can download it to your computers. And that's our 15 minutes for today. Do you guys have any questions?
Are you going to be doing a session on indexing?
We can do a session on indexing if you would like.
I would love that.
Okay. We're always looking for suggestions. So
just regular family history is getting a little bit hard, just because we have so many family members who do family history that sometimes it's hard for us to find a line we could work on. But I figured there's always indexing we can do.
There is always indexing you can do. The other thing you can do is to go back and do photos and stories on your current relatives.
That's a good idea.
Are you guys more interested in research or is there?
I've done a bit of family history.
Right.
Would you call it a lot? But
a lot. It gets
anyway.
tricky. Both my parents are divorced, but both my mom and my dad are like the state family history people. So they've done so much that trying to find a line, especially a line in English, is getting really hard. So we might actually really have to learn how to do family history in other languages if we want to keep going.
Okay.
So we have done it some, we've learned some Swedish.
Dutch? That's not Dutch.
No,
That's
Swedish.
Swedish.
And stuff, trying to find lines. We've even started working a little bit on my husband's biological side because he's adopted and his biological side doesn't have a lot done. Anyway, so we've had to get really creative, but I thought, man, if we could get on an index probably every day and always have stuff to do.
Yes, indexing is always available. The other thing that we can, we'll go more into is to look at collateral lines. So you go back like to the 1800s and then you come forward, but you're doing cousins instead of your direct line.
Okay.
A lot of times we all have cousins that have made other choices and maybe have left the church or their parents left the church and they didn't ever have the opportunity to join the church. And so even in the most done lines, there's always, we call them low-hanging fruit. It's things that are easier. So we'll kind of go over some ways to find those.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you want to, I don't know how to ask this simply. There are a few on my husband's side that seem incorrect, that don't quite make sense. But yeah, it feels really daunting to me to go and try to fix it all because it's done. I mean, like way back. Like we went and got our sheet like printed at the Family History Center, and there are like no blanks anywhere. But when I got looking at it, we went and played it like at the Family History Center, the stuff for kids that you can like put stuff in. But it wasn't making sense. I started noticing that there were people who were married to like 3 people at the same time, but they weren't LDS. My husband's grandparents were converts. And I'm like, okay, so they weren't LDS, but they had 3 wives at the same time. Like, could this be accurate? Were there other groups that were like missed that I didn't know about? So there's some, but it's scary to me to go in and like start trying to change things. I'm afraid it'll be I don't know.
You're afraid of making it worse.
Yeah, honestly, I am, because there's some stuff that I'm like, really? He was married to like all these people at the same time? Maybe he was, I don't know, just things that, or married too young. But it's like, that seems really, really young, or, just things that, but I think a lot of it was done back in like the 80s and 90s when they didn't have as much, as many records to go off of and stuff. I'm kind of
Right.
thinking,
The records are more readily available now.
right. And the people who did it have all passed away. And so I can't go ask anybody like, hey, why, because all of my husband's aunt and uncles have passed away. So anyway.
A lot of the older records were done off paper and pencil and then submitted to the church through 4-generation pedigree resource file. And so sometimes they're in there over and over again, and you'll have one tiny mistake and it will get perpetuated. So part of our task as technology people is to go in and make it more accurate. So there's a lot of cleanup that needs to go on, and that can be daunting. But
Right.
like you say, there's a lot of sources and resources that are available now, so that it's easier to attach a good source and kind of confirm and clean up some of this.
Right.
So we'll, in the coming weeks, go over some simple things you can start to do, and we'll try to stay with modern records because we know them. We're familiar with our own area, the United States, rather than going, say, to Scandinavia. But the principles, once you learn them, are true principles, and they can be applied in other countries. We're just going to kind of focus on our country and cleaning up our more current records and making sure that what we add is accurate.
That's cool. Are you still recording?
Yes, and I'm not sure how to stop that. So let's leave this. Let's see. Yeah, I can't stop it. So I'm going to stop the meeting, and then if you hit the link again, I think we can come back in.
Okay. Let's go ahead and just close it.